Welcome to Let's Talk New Mexico. I'm Taylor Velasquez. For New Mexico youth, having a trusted adult mentor like a big brother or a big sister can lead to better outcomes, like staying away from drugs and alcohol and even pursuing higher education. But as mentorship programs face volunteer shortages, some young people are being left without the support they need. Young people are facing many new and difficult challenges to navigate and more stressors. A study published by the Annie E. Casey Foundation found that nearly 1 in 3 adolescents report persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness, and that 50% of a lifetime mental health issues begin at 14. But youth mentoring may offer help for at-risk children. In 2016, a study by the National Mentoring Research Center has found that mentoring programs provide relief for symptoms of depression among mental health conditions. But despite all these positive impacts, the number of volunteer mentors is on the decline. This morning, we'll discuss youth mentorship, mental health resources for teens, and the programs working to connect kids with support, community, and opportunity. The causes behind volunteer shortages. But did you have a mentor growing up that shaped your life? You can tell us about how that relationship has impacted you, or what sorts of role models you think young people in New Mexico need today. Email letstalk@kunm.org, or you can even call us at 505-277-5866. And I would like to introduce my first guest this morning, Daniel Martinez, Director of Recruiting and Training of Big Brothers Big Sisters New Mexico. Thank you, Daniel.
Taylor, I'm so happy to be here to represent for Big Brothers Big Sisters in New Mexico, and the fact that you guys are having this show is amazing.
Of course, and you know, Big Brothers Big Sisters is usually a name that is pretty recognizable for a lot of people, but for those who may be questioning what's going on here, can you explain what your organization does?
Absolutely. So Big Brothers Big Sisters of New Mexico has been an organization nationwide for over 100 years. We've been in the state of New Mexico for over 50 years, which is fantastic. And our main mission is to support children ages 5 to 17 with one-on-one mentorship. The original sort of Big Brothers Big Sisters model would be one-on-one mentorship in the community. We call it a community match, and essentially what that means is that you're mentoring in the community. You're with your little going to a movie, going for a hike, doing any of the things that you would normally like to do and or that the child might like to do. And essentially, you're just a positive influence in the child's life. You're a champion for them. You're in their corner. And many of these mentorships can last for a long time. We ask that our mentors provide 4 to 6 hours of volunteerism time per month and that they commit for a minimum of a year. Essentially, though, once that relationship happens, you start building it. Oftentimes, those relationships last much, much longer. And you're right, the brand of Big Brothers Big Sisters, even in New Mexico, is very well known. I'm amazed at when I talk to people how many people have a connection, have heard of us, have been a mentor, want to be a mentor.
We often hear about the positive impact of mentoring on young people, but from your perspective, what changes do you see in kids that are compared with that consistent adult relationship?
Yeah, well, you know, some of the things that we see are kids are more likely to succeed generally. Their confidence builds. They're less likely to participate in risky behaviors, less likely to try drugs, drink alcohol, more likely to finish high school, more likely to enroll in college and or a trade school. And those are really some of the major positive impacts that we see on these kids. And, you know, from a parent perspective, being a parent myself, having a third party, having a mentor involved is just, the benefits are just huge.
And, you know, you're in charge of recruiting and training these mentors, but for people who want to prepare to become a mentor, what does that look on your end? Is there consistent support during that match and after that match? What does that look like? Yeah,
so the program is very well supported, and you know, essentially because we're working with children, we do background checks. We have a local and a nationwide criminal check. We do fingerprinting, and then there's an extensive interview that you work through so that we can get to know you. Your likes, your dislikes kind of build your profile. We take that information and we have match support specialists who then their job is to go out and look at our littles who are in the program, who are waiting, and we look for matches. We line them up with their likes and dislikes. And when we find one that looks like it would be a good match for the volunteer in this case, we contact the big first, and we say, hey, we think we have a little, and we go over the profile with them. If they're in agreement and they think that it's a good match, we then contact the kid and the little, as we call them, and their parent, and we do the same thing in reverse, right? We go over their profile. And if they're in agreement, we then host a meeting with everybody involved. We talk through the program. Everybody leaves that, and if everybody's in agreement post that meeting, they're off and running. We don't leave you out alone, though. Once that happens, we have match support specialists who will reach out to the bigs, the littles, their parents every month, sometimes more frequently as the relationship continues, a little less frequently, but it's just to check in. How's it going? How are you doing? Did you meet this month? Do you need anything? And it gives the mentor, the volunteer, an opportunity to ask for help or to simply let us know that things are going well, and for the little and the parent as well.
And I actually spoke with a previous mentor and mentee from Big Brothers Big Sisters, Mike Hess, who, in full disclosure, is the husband of Megan Camrick, our news director here at KUNM, and Henry Quinones. So here's some of that conversation.
I can't remember the particulars, but I believe that I saw a presentation on Big Brothers Big Sisters, and in particular their Mentor 2.0 program, which is different than the ordinary Big Brothers and Big Sisters program. It was specifically geared toward high school students, in which mentorship would be done mostly basically over electronic means through the internet. So the actual time that it would take was basically something that I could work with my schedule. And so I learned about it that way. I was very interested, especially in the sense of knowing that I could mentor a high school student. And the goals of the program were to help high school students find a path to college. And given my background and my experience, I felt that I could really fit in within those goals.
And Henry, being a high school student, what drew you to getting a mentor?
Well, actually, for the school I was in, which was South Valley Academy, the school was, I guess you could say, in a partnership with Big Brothers Big Sisters. So the program, being ninth grade, dictated that all students had to get a mentor. And I remember that the process to get a mentor was pretty long, and because they had to ask you all these questions like, what's your plans for the future? Have you ever thought of going to college? And I remember when I was asking some questions, they were telling me, have you ever thought of going to college? I'm like, I have, but I don't know how that would work. I never thought about that really. When it came to the moment to meet your mentors, I remember that was the most nerve-wracking moment for me, but I'm a little excited, but I'm a little nervous too.
I'm sure that was a big moment, but when you first met each other, what were those first impressions like?
I found that Henry, as I got to know him in that first interview and over the course of our 4-year menteeship, I got to find out that Henry and I were very similar in our outlooks on life. Henry was, like me, is kind of a very intellectually curious person. And so from that first meeting, and I could sense that this was going to be a very fruitful time that we would spend together. Subsequently, that all bore out. I'm very proud of Henry and what he's accomplished over the 4 years that we were together as mentor and mentee.
These mentor-mentee relationships aren't as common as they once were, but what has this time spent together meant to you, Henry?
I would say having a mentor is actually a beautiful experience. So having a mentor with Michael really solidified my desire to go to college. He really pushed me, motivated me to say, you got to do this, pursue something that you're passionate about. So that really helped me solidify what I wanted to do in my life. And then it's thanks to Michael that I became like the first in my family to go to college, which was something that was completely terrifying. Like, if I'm the first, there's no real support, I thought, but that wasn't the case at all. During my 4 years in college, Michael was there every step of the way, helping me so what do I do here? How does this work? Having that support was incredible. And another thing is just having that friend that you can just connect with anything. You both have those shared passions for learning or any other subject, really. Just having that support network is extremely valuable.
Mike, some people may have a thought about becoming a mentor, but have that imposter syndrome coming through and question what they can offer. But what has being a mentor meant to you personally?
Well, Taylor, you hit on that. I do struggle. I'm 62 years old. I have a PhD, and I still do struggle with that whole idea of imposter syndrome. And one of the things that really stood out to me about Henry is that he and I are very similar. We're both introverted, and we both have kind of that imposter syndrome. And so Henry would often ask me things like, I'm not sure that I can do this, or I'm not sure that I have the stuff to be able to see this through. So it really made me do a gut check on my own impulses to talk myself down out of things, because I was able to kind of redirect that to him and be able to give him my perspective on the fact that through personal experience that I've had these same feelings, I've had these same doubts about myself, and I've managed to push through and accomplish things. So if I can do that, I knew that Henry could do that, and to eventually watch him grow. And I saw that growth in our time together. I saw him do things that he might not have thought about, in junior year, do things that he might not have thought about in freshman year. And when it came to college, to really open himself to the experience. I mean, not that he didn't have doubts and not that he didn't have fears, but just my being there, I think, and kind of like providing that perspective helped him move through those. And I should clarify something, that our official mentorship ended after he graduated from high school, but we were allowed the opportunity to continue on talking to each other and seeing each other if we wanted. It was basically on our own time, and we both had to agree to that, and we did enthusiastically. I continued much of the same role, but not in an official capacity while he went through college. And I'm so proud of Henry. He just graduated. He just graduated from college, and it's just such a great thing. He's got his whole life ahead of him. He's got a career to really pursue, and it's just a wonderful thing to see that through.
Henry, first off, congratulations. That's a huge milestone. But this mentorship was only supposed to last 4 years, and now you've known Mike for 8 years. Are there any particular moments that stand out to you that were impactful?
There was many moments where I was extremely doubtful myself, especially like my first year in college. I was absolutely terrified because I remember my parents, I remember on the first day they dropped me off at UNM, they told me, "We love you, do your best, and survive." I'm like, okay, I'll try my best. And I was terrified. So every day, well, as constant as I could, I was always asking Michael for advice regarding, well, how does this work with classes? I think, in my opinion, without Michael's support, I think my own doubts would have consumed me during my first years of college.
It sounds like this mentorship has greatly impacted both of you, but from this experience, why is mentorship so crucial for young people today?
There's a real lack of direction for young people nowadays. We tend to throw them into things, or we expect things of them, but we don't really give them, as a society, a lot of support. I can even see that going back to when I was in college, when Henry said his parents dropped him off and, said, "We love you." And that was exactly kind of my experience, so I had to kind of make my way alone and make my mistakes and all of that. And the fact that we're seeing even less of that nowadays really concerns me, because it's helpful to have that guidance. I have no doubt Henry's resourceful, and Henry probably would have made it through. But do I feel good that I might have helped make it easier for him to realize his potential by providing him that support? Yes, I absolutely do. And I absolutely value that. I think that Henry and our relationship isn't going to end here. We're going to be friends for a lifetime.
Henry, has Mike as a mentor influenced your decision to become an educator, and how do you anticipate using the lessons you've learned in the future?
Like Mike also mentioned, right? Most teenagers, when they're going to high school, they're still not thinking about, am I going to college? What am I going to do with my life? So they still don't know. But thankfully, being a mentee with Michael, I started working on, well, what would I like to do with my life? Thankfully, by that friendship, that mentorship, I already had a foundation of what I wanted to do. Back in high school, I told him, I think I'd like to be an educator, a teacher, in a way, give back to the community. I wasn't certain, but at least going into college, I had an idea what to do. And sadly, many people who don't have mentorships, if they go to college, that's amazing, but sadly, they don't know what to do. So having a mentor is really that compass that really helps us to stay true to our aspirations.
Henry, I know you're stepping into the next chapter of your life, but what is something you want people to understand about what you're taking away from this mentorship?
Having that support, that friendship, I would say has very much influenced how I wish to be an educator, because At the university, one of the requirements a student who wants to be a teacher is do a year-long training where they assign you to a classroom. And when I was assigned to my classroom, I thought to myself, you know what? My strategy is going to be trying to build that bond with my students, show them that, yes, I am your teacher. I want to give you information, but I'm here to support you. I want to be like that cheerleader, cheering you on when you don't see the potential in yourself. I'm going to see it. I want to help you see it. As an educator, to have that opportunity to be a mentor myself, I mean, it's a beautiful privilege to have.
Mike, what do you wish people knew about becoming a mentor?
It can seem to be daunting at the beginning because you might have a lot of doubts about if you have anything to give, but everybody has something to give. We all have life experience. You know, you don't have to have a PhD or anything like that. You can be in a career, you can be in a trade, but you combine all of that with your life experience, which I found that I was using less of my education when I was talking with Henry and more of just my personal experience. You know, what did I go through as I navigated through life? And if that's what you have to bring, that's more than adequate to basically give a person the confidence that they need to think, yeah, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can go to college. Maybe I can have a life. Maybe I'll be the first person in my family, like Henry was, to go to college and to graduate from college. And then you can see those ripple effects. You can see how proud the parents are and know that you had a part in that. And that confidence given to your mentee ripples down through the family and eventually through generations. And you watch them be able to give back like Henry says he wants to do. So it's a real, I hate to say this, a real ego boost, you know, to feel like you've had a hand in all that. And you don't really have to have all that much, just that desire to help a person, give them confidence.
Henry, I'll give you the final thought here, but what has the last 8 years meant to you?
Yeah, I mean, I would just like to say to anyone that if you have the opportunity to be part of a mentorship program, don't waste it. Take it. It will change your life for the better. I mean, with this friendship with Michael, I learned so many new things about myself. Like there was times where I was telling Michael, "Hey, Michael, I actually made a friend in college. Can you believe that?" And you know, it's a small thing. It's not big compared to maybe graduating from college or other major events of your life. But the fact that I had someone to share the small victories of life is beautiful.
And that was former mentor Mike Hess and mentee Henry Quiones with Big Brothers Big Sisters New Mexico. And we're going to pause the conversation and head to a quick break. This is Let's Talk New Mexico on 89.9 KUNM. I'm Taylor Velasquez. Today we're talking about youth mentorship. We'll be right back. Back to Let's Talk New Mexico. I'm Taylor Velasquez. Next week, you'll have to tune in and see what the news team decides here. But today, we're talking about the impacts of youth mentoring, but we're also talking about the decline in volunteers. So far, we've heard from Daniel Martinez from Big Brothers Big Sisters New Mexico, and we also heard from former mentor and mentee Mike Hess and Henry Quiones. But Daniel, I want to go back to you before, like I said, we heard from those former success stories here. Is that something that is common? What experiences do you see?
I love hearing that story, and that's a huge success for us, right? It really is exactly what we're looking for, is that relationship flowers and lasts for a long time, and it's not unusual. In the time that I've been here, every match that I've met has a story like that. And it doesn't really matter the age of the kid, right? You see the littles that are in elementary school and they're so cute. And the high schoolers are awesome. And so it's not unusual. The benefit certainly outweighs the commitment. And so if you're someone who's thinking about mentoring, really take the opportunity to do it because you'll be happy you did. The Mentor 2.0 program, if you don't mind, I'll talk about that a little bit. COVID was a real issue, I think, for most nonprofits. It had an impact on us because we're in the community and we're in schools, right? So Mentor 2.0 was born out of that. The team was able to put together a program whereby bigs could exchange electronically with their littles, communicate with them with materials we would provide. They might have a FaceTime kind of thing, and then every 4 to 6 weeks now in the program, it still exists, we provide opportunities at the high school or in the schools where the bigs will meet with their littles for a period of time. So it's a little bit of a lighter lift than the community program I mentioned earlier, but it's a fantastic program. And you know, as resilient as we are, even with COVID, that kind of thing helped us survive. In the past year, Big Brothers Big Sisters of New Mexico merged. Previously, we were 2 different organizations or 2 different affiliates inside of New Mexico. And last year, we merged into one with the leadership of our new CEO, who's been with us for over a year now, Dion Cruz Miller. She's leading us through that merge, and with the merge, we're now one mission, one state, one big difference. So we're really taking the opportunity to serve more children across the state. And yeah, so that's a fantastic thing for us. And if you're in any of the remote areas in New Mexico, we're serving 18 counties of 33. We're just about everywhere. So I'm so thankful that we're here and that you guys are also broadcasting across the state so we can get our message out.
Well, it does seem like there's more than enough opportunity going around out there, but I know Mike in his interview mentioned there's maybe some hesitancy for mentors. Maybe who am I to offer help? What resources do I have to give? But what support are folks offered to kind of overcome those barriers and really see themselves through into being a mentor?
Well, I think some of the barriers that people perceive are just the time commitment, right? But as I talked about a little bit earlier, in the community program, you're really integrating your little into your regular everyday sort of life, and it really just adds benefit to that experience, right? So don't be afraid of that. You're also very well supported by the organization. So again, I talked a little bit about some of the supports we have in onboarding new mentors and then providing support. Our organization also offers community activities. We have a whole staff that focus on that. So for example, twice a month we'll have an opportunity like an art night or maybe a yoga night, and we open our facilities and matches from across the city will come and participate in that. And they're gaining their hours requirement, they're spending time with their little, and they're meeting other matches. So it really is fun. And I think that, those kinds of people have those perceptions, and these kids just want attention. It's really awesome.
And like you said, this is meant to be fun. It's a good opportunity, but what are the biggest misconceptions that you can kind of myth bust for us this morning about being a mentor?
Well, I think it's the time commitment, right? People really think about that. And then as you said, people will think, oh, well, what if I'm not a good mentor? And we hear that story sometimes. But these kids really are very excited about it, meeting somebody new, and then making sure that commitment, when you make it, that you're consistent, because with the consistency, the relationship builds. And I think, again, just the benefit of the relationship and watching a young child grow and having someone that you can instill positive approach in is just huge and beneficial.
And speaking of just more recent success story, I actually spoke with Tony Chavez, who has been a big brother since his little was in 4th grade, and we chatted about what his experience has been like, and his little brother just graduated high school this week, so here's some of that conversation.
The main thing, just watching him grow, remembering he was in 4th grade when we first got together, and just seeing the changes in his life, and now graduating from high school yesterday, which was, he's a bright young man. He just needed to have that positive feedback that he could do it.
You've been in such a long-term mentorship with your little. How do you gain that trust?
The main thing is looking at yourself, and the main thing I found out, he just ended up looking at sharing what we were both interested in, and looking at others is coming into the program. A lot of people said at first, when I talked to others about trying to get into the program, well, I don't have the time, I don't know what I should do with that. Well, it's not a major time commitment that you're giving. You're giving some time, but it's what you do with that time that's important. Even if it's 3 hours a month, you're spending 3 hours engaging in someone you're changing their life. And main thing, I was listening to him, not me giving him my spiels, but being a listener. I think that's the main thing for a big to do, is not to throw your agenda on the little, but listen to the little to see what their needs are and their interests are and their hopes are, and just to listen.
And I'm sure your little has gained so much from you, but what have you gotten out of being a mentor?
For me, this activity, I was doing things that I thought I'd never do. Again, being a retired person, I think I gained more of a knowledge of who I am and what I could offer. And even though being retired, thinking, what can I do now in my life? But being able to offer the gifts that I think I had over the years to Damari and being able to receive from Damari gifts of being just positive feedback from him about who I was, that I didn't see I was. Like the other day, he just said, Mr. Chavez, over the years, you showed me what it is to be respectful to other people. And I didn't realize I was doing that. He said, I just saw how the way you were talking to others when we were outside and doing activities, I just saw how you spoke to people and were patient with people, and that had an impact on me. So I didn't realize I was doing that. But you don't know how you're making a difference in their life. After a while, you get the feedback, but it happens. And a big can do that without ever even knowing that they're doing it, just being themselves.
What are some of the stories that you can share that stand out to you that has made you feel like there has been an impact?
We have regular things we do every year. Like, for example, every Christmas for 9 years, he's come over and we baked cookies. And the cookies go home. And that's something we were just able to be in our kitchen and to share. And we did it again this year. I thought, at 18, you're still interested? He said, oh, no, Mr. Chavez, I want to come over and want to bake cookies. And Damari, a couple weeks ago, shared, even though I may be getting out of the program, so we're still going to get together, Mr. Chavez. I said, yeah, we're still going to get together. Even though I may graduate the program, we're still going to be meeting with each other and hanging out with each other because he feels he wants to do that.
You served as a Big Brother, Big Sister, or for the Big Brothers, Big Sisters organization. Daniel, we've heard different approaches so far this morning about how mentors help their mentee through life, but what particular groups of kids that are not being served right now that maybe you think, okay, if someone with this life experience would be really good to sign up?
We I think I mentioned we're in 18 counties out of 33 in New Mexico, and we serve all demographics and all communities. We're open to any and all demographics. We welcome all age groups between 5 and 17. And so those that may not be, that might want to go ahead and sign up that may not think we have programs, we're in San Juan County. We work with Native American schools and populations. We're in Aztec, Bloomfield, Farmington, Kirtland, Nanazad, Shiprock. In McKinley County, Apache County, Arizona, we're in Gallup. Rehoboth, Thoreau, Zuni, Window Rock, we have programs. In Otero County, we have a Mescalero. So we're pretty much everywhere, and I would encourage you, if you're interested, regardless of your location, reach out to us. You can go out to bbbsnm.org and find opportunities to apply to be a mentor, to see more of our statistics, to make a donation. We're always looking for board members, but we serve any community and every community. So if you're doubtful, sign up. We'll talk to you about it, and we'll give you all the information you need.
And I would like to introduce my next guest this hour, Baruch Campos, Executive Director of Together for Brothers. Good morning.
Good morning. Excited to be here.
And, we've heard a couple of types of mentorship so far this morning, but can you explain the goals of Together for Brothers and what kind of mentorship you guys offer?
Of course, yeah. So at Together for Brothers, we really envision the health and better health outcomes for boys and young men of color, their families and communities. We do this through direct partnership with boys and young men of color to not only build leadership for them and for them to be leaders in their families, schools, but also in their communities. And so a lot of the work that we do is to really build individual skills and knowledge of boys and young men around a healthy masculinity framework to be those peer mentors. And so that's kind of what our organization really focuses on. And we do this through various programming and cohort-based spaces.
And, you mentioned you guys are focusing on those healthy masculine relationships. Why was it so important for you all to kind of get this niche of particular kids to mentor?
Yeah. So, going back to, our T4B story, we really saw, our community really saw a need for spaces specifically for boys and young men. We often hear these really negative narratives about young men in our community. And for us, it was really crucial that we were doing something to shift that narrative and counter it with something, healthier and something where young men can really look at a story, and see themselves in that positive light. And so for us, it was really important to tackle that specific niche because we know that when young men are given responsibility and roles in their communities, we're not just building more resilient young men, we're also making safer communities for everyone.
And we've heard a lot just recently about the pressures of social media for young men, what they're seeing on social media, but how are you all adapting to that kind of mentorship right now, and what are you hearing directly from the mentees of what they need?
That is a great question. We were just having a conversation about this last night with the young man. We recognize that we're facing a lot of challenges, and that young men are being fed a lot of different narratives online about what it means to be masculine, what it means to be a man. And so the way that we're kind of adapting to this situation is looking at the root cause of, why why does toxic masculinity exists, and really trying to deconstruct that within our group and within our mentors, to be able to have those conversations in their circles with other young men. I mentioned that we are peer based, and so all of our programming is all led by young men as young as 12, as old as 24, oftentimes in partnerships. So for us, it's really important that we're continuing to meet that need of real in-person spaces through our outdoor project, or whether that's getting young men into the kitchen and cooking together. So we're really trying to foster those really healthy spaces, in-person spaces, and trying to have those really honest conversations about what we're experiencing in our digital spaces.
And I'm sure you think about the why behind Together for Brothers every day. And long term, when you're seeing young men come in and out of the program, what does that meaningful mentorship actually look like in practice for you all?
Yeah, so for us, we have a cohort model. So all of the majority of our mentorship happens in a group setting. In addition to those kind of weekly one-on-ones that our young men are receiving from their peers. And so for us in practice, it's really about kind of meeting the young people where they're at, meeting them not just simply, in a classroom setting, but also, going on a hike, going on a bike ride, getting in the kitchen and cooking for each other and learning those really useful skills, but also taking that time to really learn about each other's what we call our assets. Those are our skills, our goals, our values, because we believe that every young person that comes into our space already comes with so much to offer, which is kind of like the counter narrative that oftentimes a lot of our young people, don't receive at sometimes in school, where often a lot of our young people come and express kind of the things that they're not so good at, versus really kind of focusing and honing in on their interests and things that, they're really good at. And so for us, our day-to-day, that's what it looks like. It's a group mentorship model in addition to those one-on-one phone calls, one-on-one conversations.
Definitely. And Daniel, programs across the country are reporting its decline in volunteers. What has recruitment looked like for you guys?
Well, in recruiting, we're always out in the field looking for basically volunteers, adults primarily, and littles. We're also recruiting littles. So, our approach to recruiting, we have a whole set of things. We're building relationships with organizations in the state, across the city, across the state, the universities, and corporations we have partnerships with to gain access to their constituency and their employee base. We do presentations. We'll spend a few minutes talking about the program, the need, the fact that we have kids waiting for mentors. And that's really the best opportunity that we have to get to people, because it's not a hard sell. We're looking for the folks who have it in their heart and really would have an interest in mentorship. They just need a little more information. They need a contact. Secondary to that, we're out in community doing tablings at different events sort of across the state, anywhere and everywhere we can find them, to get the word out. And then we also have flyers and electronic flyers. We work with organizations and local businesses, and we post those anywhere and everywhere we can. And of course, we have staff across the state who are working with the legislature and in every sort sort of opportunistic way that we can get the word out about our program, and that's how we mentor. This being here and having this opportunity and finding you was just a fantastic opportunity for us to get that word out.
And I'm going to have to pause the conversation right there. We're going to take a quick break. This is Let's Talk New Mexico on 89.9 KUNM. We're discussing mentorship for young people and the benefits to the community. We'll be back in a minute. Welcome back to Let's Talk New Mexico on KUNM. We're discussing an important resource of youth mentorship and why volunteering has been on the decline in recent years. Are you interested in becoming a youth mentor and have questions for our panel? You can give us a call at 505-277-5866. And before the break, we had a caller call in, Madalena from Albuquerque. Good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Good morning. My name is Madalena. I'm also the executive director of Working Classroom, which is a youth serving arts and social justice nonprofit that is located down the street from Baruch and T4B. Hi, Baruch. And we've worked alongside them for the past several years and love what they do. They're very aligned with what we do as well. I know that this program is focused on mentorship and the challenge of recruiting new mentors as volunteers. What I'd like to speak to, and curious what the panel thinks as well, is challenges in fundraising. T4B is a kind of similar, excuse me, in terms of scope and reach and values aligned to Working Classroom as well in terms of the way that we approach our work with young people. But we have seen for the past couple of years under this administration in particular, not only the challenges and benefits that everybody has been speaking to already, but how challenges in funding have really impacted how we are investing in folks that want to serve as mentors, but we also have young people that serve as peer mentors. Our young people, as they go through the program, mentor each other and build relationship. So there's already been a barrier since the pandemic for young people to engage because of, just challenges mentally, just so much that you've already spoken to. But the fundraising piece, when it comes to, at all levels, has impacted how we are able to engage with young people in this program, engage with community folks to come join our program. We work on a model where artists lead workshops and projects in the community with young people ages 12 to 21 approximately as they come up through our program. And on our on our community projects that are much bigger in scope, as well as, all the other projects, we always pay a really competitive wage to the artists and mentors that work with our young people. And our young people are coming up as leaders and apprentices in this program. So oftentimes they are getting a competitive wage as well, participating. And it's not just paying those folks well, it's also our ability to run operations as we see money shifting towards things like, policing, right, as opposed to preventative services. So, and like I said, this is at all levels, individual donors, local and national funders, governments at all levels as well. So that's been our biggest challenge to support what you all are talking about. And I'm curious what y'all's experiences as well.
Thank you for calling in. And I'll go to our panel. Barut, what is your experience considering everything that we just heard? Are you feeling that need to for fundraising?
Definitely seeing a big shift in focus and funding priorities. As Madalena has explained, we face the exact same challenges. And then going back to, oftentimes when we think about why we also have that challenge of, for our college students, it's been a little tougher to recruit mentors, college age, that age range from 18 to 24. And going back to kind of the root cause and why that is, it's usually, we're in an environment where folks are needing sometimes to pick and choose how they use their time. employment versus volunteer time. And so I think that has, going to the root of why we've had so many older mentors. It's because of this, like all of the issues. We don't have sufficient funding to stipend some of our mentors, and and the folks who will potentially be mentors are kind of busy getting jobs and spending more of their time and effort in those spaces. So it's a challenging time, but we're always working to diversify our funding and figuring out what that looks like.
And I would like to introduce our last guest this hour, Nathan Bayerns with LSG and Associates. Good morning, Nathan. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
And we've heard a lot so far, but can you just break it down for our listeners who are not familiar with you all about the work you do?
Hi. So we kind of have two parts to our organization. We have a clinical part and a nonprofit. So I work for the nonprofit and TAP side. On our clinic side, we start working with youth as young. We have an ABA clinic that does play therapy with toddlers facing. So we primarily work with the community, the disabled community, and we and so we work with as young as toddlers. Doing play therapy and getting them socialized and proper play and stuff like that. We go into schools. We have speech pathologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, and behavioral therapists that go and work with youth and help them integrate in school, get them skills, and kind of fill in that gap. And then on my side, we work with vocational rehabilitation. So through the DVR, we receive funding, which is the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. So we do things, and we are starting to target a lot of 18 to 22-year-olds because it's a huge gap in how in society. I know I was struggling at 18 to 22 to figure out my way. I could use a job coach probably back then. So we go in and we work with people with diverse abilities, and we take them out in the community. We get them skill-based training. We help them conceptualize different kinds of jobs. A lot of people just see what they see what they see. So they go to the grocery store and they think maybe that's the only job out there, or they see warehouses or anything like that. But we like to go out and give them a bunch of different opportunities to try and build skills and build confidence. And we work through that to create a job development. So we kind of match their goals with the skills they're learning, and we find them competitive employment out in the community, and we go through and do job coaching. So even after they get a job, we stay with them. We create any sort of accessibility needs and stuff like that. And most importantly, we go in and help them create natural supports at work because they're not used to it. A lot of those people in this community have never been socialized with. And so creating these natural supports, breaking down those barriers is our primarily role. And we create trainings for these businesses when we're out there that they adopt and they use with their own other employees and stuff like that. And so it just becomes, for the business, it becomes a great opportunity to become more well-rounded. And for the individual, it gives them an opportunity not only work, but build their own community.
And how important is that representation, relatability, and mentorship, especially with these young people to feel understood and supported?
And I like I said, I always harken back to even how I was feeling, and I did not face a lot of the challenges people in our community faced. And so creating, especially, like we've touched on, especially since COVID, it's been so hard to create these social connections and stuff like that, especially in the workforce as people become more and more individualized in companies as well. So it's life-changing for a lot of our clients because they go from, we'd say, unfortunately, a lot of people graduate to the couch to where, they don't see the opportunities out there. And so we're trying to build these programs so they can graduate on to following things they never even conceptualized before.
And for you all, what does coaching look like for the kids you serve? Can anyone come in and coach, or what does that look like?
We do work with specialists. So I'm an employment specialist for LSG. But what we've been doing is doing skill-based training out in the community. So we've partnered with a lot of different nonprofits, from Habitat for Humanity to CABQ programs. Like we have clients out that work with volunteers at the Balloon Fiesta right now. And so the way best to connect with our community is go and volunteer at these organizations, because that's where we're out there building skills and stuff, and choose to be social with them and choose to be social with the job coach, because we have clients that create lasting friendships out there.
And for beyond helping the individual kids, we've had some examples this morning. What kind of broader impacts can mentorship programs have on like schools, families, and even communities like you just mentioned?
Yeah, so, getting involved in stuff like that, to touch on it again, the social aspect is so tough. When we look at our ABA clinic with play therapy, these kids are generally, pulled aside from the rest of their classes and stuff like that. So they don't even know how to do simple things like play. And so teaching kids through fun therapies like that while also providing other supports, it starts kind of bridging that natural, it gets rid of that unfortunate gap and creates natural supports. And so when I get to work with these individuals and they're older, they've had a lot of these therapies growing up and they're ready to tackle new things like find a job, build community, make friendships at work and things like that.
And we do have a caller on the line, AJ from Albuquerque. Good morning, AJ.
Hi there. Thanks for having me on the air.
Definitely. And it looks like you have some personal experience you would like to share.
Yeah. So I used to participate as a mentor in the Boys and Girls Club New Mexico when I was a high school student at El Dorado High School. And I mentored a second grade student in my dad's sister's class. And his name was Reyes. And I hope he's listening right now because he taught me how to do backflips out of the swing. And also, I got him interested in skateboarding. Some years after our mentorship ended, I ran into him at Los Altos Skate Park because I saw someone just flying around the bowl like a bird and just launching out. And I was like, wow, look at that kid. And then I was like, oh my God, that's Reyes. And so I got this just amazing satisfaction out of being a part of his story and helping get him interested in something that has been a positive impact on his life. Skateboarding saves lives. And so I just wanted to call and share that story to hopefully motivate some of our listeners today to become a mentor because it just makes a huge impact on the youth in our community, and it's vital. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, AJ, for calling in and sharing that story. It brought a couple smiles to the faces here in the studio. But Daniel, when we're talking about these mentorships this morning, we're hearing stories about skateboarding or cooking or baking cookies at Christmas time. But what are those long-term goals for the program that people are going to say, oh, 20 years from now, that was really helpful for me to have a mentor and have them guide me through?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. Some of these relationships, as just mentioned, last a long time. And I think the overall goal is we want to see all of these kids reach their full potential. And so the supports that we've been talking about from all the organizations mentioned and represented here just go a long way in supporting our youth. I mean, they are our future, right? So if we're going to invest in something, it's that. Sort of a follow-on, you had interviewed Mike and Henry being the little, right, for all those years. A great goal for us is that we then see Henry become a big, right? And it's like pay it forward, pay it back, right? You had such a great mentor in your life, and let's carry that forward so that all of the children and, they're going to lead us through the future, and we want to make a positive impact in their life. The other thing I would say really quickly is that, LSG in the program, they have my son's a client of theirs. And, the idea that a child can be supported through understanding what it means to work and how to work has a huge impact in their life.
Definitely. And Nathan, on that note, from your perspective, you all do the same thing, but radically different considering what your goals are. But what does a lasting, truly meaningful relationship look like that does impact young people in your perspective, considering the work you guys do?
I think, the big thing in this, I've worked with Daniel's son for almost 2 years now, and consistency. Mm-hmm. So having someone you can rely on in your life, having someone, we do, like Daniel said, once we get someone into a job, we work with them for sometime years, and it might not be as hands-on, but coming in and checking on them and just being a consistent source in their lives. Because, at work and anywhere, there's a lot of, coming and going of people, and some people drop out, some people move on, but having someone you can always rely on and come to for advice and, kind of help you learn from your own mistakes or give you tips on how to be successful.
And Berg, I'll head over to you. Like I said, you guys are all serving young people in different ways, but what do you think youth in New Mexico are needing most right now from adults?
I would definitely say that, what youth are needing most from adults right now is opportunity and space for them to really be able to lead and express themselves and practice those leadership skills. Oftentimes, I think a lot of our young people tend to feel small when they're around older folks. And I know with, as I'm listening to all of these stories, is that, we're countering that narrative that young people, with a mentor by their side, really are capable of so much and so much leadership. And so I think that's what they need from adults, is really recognizing their power and recognizing that, they are part of a larger community.
Right. And that was my next question for you. What do you think the community can do best to serve you all? I know it's different organizations, but what do you think the community can do to really step in?
We are definitely looking for those older mentors, as I mentioned earlier, those 18 to 24 and up. And so if there's older men out there that are looking to do any volunteer hours and want to connect with young men and helping us build those skills. That's what I would call in. We're working with these young men late at night, late after school. And so we don't know a lot of our brothers' situations in terms of, how many meals they have had that day. So we're always looking for support about creative ways to kind of feed our young people while they're in our spaces.
And for young people who are listening and they're like, well, I didn't know I could be a mentor this early in life, what are those first initial steps they can take? Do they just reach out to you, or what's that kind of first conversation like?
We're on Instagram, Together for Brothers. If they search us, they DM us. If they're interested, we're always checking our messages. They can email us directly through our website. Definitely, it's that first connection. We'll have a one-on-one with them. We'll explain the programs and the opportunities. And we actually provide the training and the skills and the onboarding for all of our mentors.
Definitely. And Nathan, I'll give you the last thoughts here. If there's one message that you could share to our listeners this morning, whether they're parents, educators, or community members, or even potential mentors, what would it be?
Just see what you can get involved with in your community. Even people kind of, don't even realize how much, if you're a student, getting involved with more people in your class. If you're a teacher, or a parent with someone with disabilities, help them connect with these resources because it helps grow community over time. But in all honesty, be accessible to people. If you're an employer or if, coworkers and stuff like that, just, see how you can become natural supports, not just to our community, but to other communities, because it tends to help businesses and helps growing, make connections across multiple different sectors.
For sure. And that's all the time we have left today. Thank you to everyone who called and even emailed to share your thoughts. And thank you to so much of our guests. This morning we had Daniel Martinez, Mike Hess, Henry Quiones, and Nathan Behers, Burrow Campos, and even Tony Chavez from Big Brothers Big Sisters New Mexico. This show was made possible by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation and KUNM listeners like you. Let's keep the conversation going. You can search KUNM Radio to comment on Facebook, and you can even look for us at KUNM News on Instagram and TikTok, or just shoot us an email at letstalk@kunm.org. If you missed part of the show today, you can stream it on our website or subscribe to our podcast on Spotify or Apple. And you can also find the whole episode on YouTube. Just search at KUNM Radio. And our engineer this morning was Marino Spencer. Megan Camrick screened your calls, and Ty Bannerman produced the show. And stay tuned for next week. I'm Taylor Velasquez. This is Let's Talk New Mexico on 89.9 KUNM.